Now, if you want to see what we can do with a jug and some flowers, keep watching. Hi there and welcome back. So today we're going to revisit the line arrangement that we did way back last year when we started the YouTube channel. Lots of you have requested that I expand on the very basic designs that I've already taught you. So we're going to look at redoing that line or vertical arrangement, and this time I've picked up a bunch of flowers from the supermarket to show you how you can recreate the design without having the specific, more prescribed flower content that I've often used in previous videos. So stick with us and we'll see what we can do with this gorgeous bunch. Now, you'll see me use the green floral foam a lot in the videos, and it's not very environmentally friendly, and we've been asked a couple of times if we can use an alternative to the foam. So today I'm going to be using a fairly new product on the market. This is called Agra-Foam, and this is 100% biodegradable, far more environmentally friendly, and feels very much like the insulation that you would put in your loft. And it's very much compacted down. It absorbs water very quickly, and I've practiced with it a few times. I haven't used it a great deal, so if it goes wrong, then you're here to follow me along on that journey. Now, I've pre-soaked the Agra-Wool the same as you would do with a block of the green floral foam. And what I found is when it's tipped on its side like this, it does leak out quite a lot of water. So I'm assuming that the Agra-Wool is probably best used flat on the side like this, because you'll see that the minute I tip it on its side, it leaks out quite a lot of the water. And unfortunately, for this design that I want to create, I'm using a tall, thin enamel jug, so I'm going to have to use the foam vertically on its side. So I've just popped the Agra-Wool into my container, and this is just an enamel jug, and I feel that it's possibly a little bit too low for the container. So what I'm just going to do is take it out, and I've cut a few little slithers of the Agra-Wool just to raise the base up slightly. Now, there's quite a lot of water in the bottom of the container already. What I find is when you turn it on its side like this, it does leak out quite a lot of water. But I suppose as long as there's a well of water there in the bottom, it's going to keep hydrating that Agra-Wool and making sure that there's plenty of water to keep those flowers alive. Right, okay, so this is my container. I've got the Agra-Wool inside. Back in the previous video, I had a spare piece of the Eucalyptus robusta, and that's going to look really nice to give me that vertical movement at the back. I've also got some garden foliage, so this time it's camellia, beautiful dark green, very lush foliage. And again, if you're in the UK, you might easily have the camellia in your garden or a friend or neighbour's garden. And again, to bring me a little bit of contrast, a different shape and texture, we've got some more of the box, and we've used this in a previous video, or possibly a video that's to come in a few weeks time. And then this time, rather than giving you a list of almost a prescriptive list of flowers that you would maybe purchase from a florist shop, I've chosen to use a supermarket bunch instead. And this one again is from Asda. And I chose it because there was the lovely blue delphinium in there. Just get that out. And I thought that would give me a beautiful colour link with my container. And I had 3 of those. So not only is the colour really good with my container, but it also gives me that tall linear movement that I'd like to see in this type of arrangement. So for me, it was a perfect choice of material. Now, in the bunch are these 2 chrysanthemum blooms, so lovely big heads. And you probably, if you're learning basic floral design, you've probably been told not to use 2s. And arranging in 3s and 5s tends to be more pleasing to the eye. But with a design like this that is very minimal and vertical, it is perfectly acceptable to arrange in pairs, but not in matching pairs like those big eyes or headlights that I quite often talk about. So they're fine in a vertical line. It might be too much for the size of my container, so we'll decide that as we go along. Then I have a really pretty piece of foliage. This one is Pittosporum. This is Pittosporum tubaira, and again you can grow that in a shrub. I've got one little piece, oh, I've just realised I've actually got 3 chrysanthemum blooms. So that might work a little bit better for me, but we've got 3 of those. Then I have 2 of the lime green hypericum, and I probably use this grouped together to give me a bit of visual weight here at the bottom. And then I have 2 stems of what we call a stallion chrysanthemum. So the variety of this one is stallion. It's a very small little chrysanthemum. I don't know if I'm going to use all of those, but they're there if I need them. And then we have a single rose, which is going to add some texture and again a different shape and a different form into the arrangement. So let's see what we can do with those. Now the enamel jug is very narrow, tall and straight, and we're almost going to replicate that shape on top of the container. So I'm going to start with the tall linear delphinium. So this is called Delphinium Vulcanfried, and ideally you're looking to go twice the height of your container. My delphiniums aren't quite tall enough to go twice the height, so I'm just going to use the delphinium as tall as I possibly can make it. And if you're at home and you might have something in the garden like a nice long twig, a birch twig, or some twisted willow, some hazel, then you can always add a little bit of height at the back. But these types of videos are just to explain to you that if you don't have the exact same materials as that I'm using, you can substitute, or you can try and create a design with similar materials. So don't panic if you can't get exactly the same as me. So if you don't have the delphinium like this, another linear flower would be ideal. So a gladioli, liatris, stock in the summer would be fantastic. And I've got 3. So what I've done with these is I've created my height and the start of my sort of outline shape. I've placed them at slightly different heights, and we're working pretty much in the centre of the foam there. So if you think of that linear shape of the container, it's continuing all the way up to that blue colour of the delphinium there at the top. And it's almost like a column in the centre there, very straight and following that linear vertical shape and pattern that we're trying to create. So this type of design is front facing. It's going to be seen from one side. So when you're working on it, try to remember to spin your design back to the front position, but turn it around occasionally so that you can make sure that all of the foam here at the back, this lovely Agra foam, is completely covered. So I'm going to use the rose next because it's the smaller flower. And what we're going to do is come from the smaller flowers at the top to the larger flowers here at the base. So this single rose is going to start the link to the white colour combination, and again I'm very straight, just tucked in there alongside those delphiniums, so it starts to bring a link of colour from the top to the bottom. And we're trying at this stage to grade the flowers, so we start with the smaller flowers at the top and we work to the bigger flower nearer the base and nearer the container. So this rose is going to give me a step up in size before we get to this large chrysanthemum bloom at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to look now for the chrysanthemum bloom that's the smallest. So the smallest is going to come here towards the top, and my largest chrysanthemum bloom is going to be here at the bottom. And again, I'm very straight, quite rigid. It's quite a formal design. And in the previous videos that we did, you would have seen me use the same flower to bring this bouncing line down from the top to the bottom. I would have used maybe a single carnation or possibly a gerbera. And then as we come a little bit more towards the bottom, we're going to angle the flowers slightly more forward. And this type of design, this linear line arrangement, works really well with this type of container because it almost gives you a continuation of that shape all the way to the very top. Right, okay, so my next chrysanthemum bloom. So we're coming a bit shorter and we're stepping forward down towards where the focal point would be. We just turn that round so I can remember where the front is. Slightly adjust that one. Now so far this Agra-Wool is working really well. It's nice and strong, nice and sturdy. It's holding my flowers in position, and it's just as easy to work with as floral foam, but far better for the environment. And hopefully now we'll look to work more with the Agra-Wool as we go into 2022. And then I'm going to bring this chrysanthemum, this next large bloom, this time more towards the front. So up until now everything's been facing the ceiling. Now I'm going to bring this one more towards the front so we have a large big focal flower to look at, and this will be in my focal position here at the front. Not too close together so that we can appreciate each flower type, and straight away we have that lovely focal line. It starts here and then the colour, your eye, bounces back and forth as we follow that vertical line down through the front. So it's the same principles as we did in that very first video, which hopefully I can link up here. It's the same principle, that same bouncing line all the way down through the front. And if we look at it from the side, we angle slightly forward, so we've got a lovely profile. We've got that three-dimensional form starting to take place. Still quite flat at the back, but we'll correct that in the moment when we add some foliage. And it's a very simple design. There's not a huge amount of flowers in there, but we've created something that's quite striking and quite attractive. This would look fantastic on a buffet table at the back, away from any food sources or drinks that would be on the bottom. Now you could, if you wanted to, leave it like that and just finish off with some of the foliage, but I've got this green Hypericum berry. Now I did originally say that I was going to put this in a group together, but what I'm actually going to do is put it either side of my focal point. So one here and then one to the left hand side. And again, it's helping to bring a different texture and a different colour. I'm still making sure that I've removed any foliage there off the base. And now I'm introducing a lovely green colour into the arrangement. It would have been nice if I had had some more of the blue to bring down to the bottom here, because at the moment the blue is only on the top. But I'm just trying to show you what you can do with a simple supermarket bunch of flowers. Now it's important to remember with this type of design that a line arrangement or a vertical arrangement, whatever you choose to call it, needs to be narrow and thin. We don't need to make it too wide so that it becomes a triangle. It's a very limited and minimal amount of flower content to create quite a striking design. Now I'm probably only going to use one of the chrysanthemums, so this little baby chrysanthemum here, I'm going to use more towards the base. I'm going to cut it into smaller pieces so that we get more flowers out of that one stem. And there was a few little damaged heads on this, which unfortunately sometimes when you're purchasing from the supermarket you can have materials that are a bit damaged, and that's, I think, because so many people tend to pick up the flowers in the supermarket. They have a look at the bunch, they decide that they don't like it, so they put it back into the bucket, and over time they get a little bit damaged. But what I've done is I've thinned that one stem out, so I've taken the top section off, and you've seen me do this quite often with the chrysanthemum head. I've taken that top section off, so I've ended up with a much thinner flower. It's not got so much bulk, it's not dense and heavy on the top. And then what I can do with this, I can add it up towards the top section, a little bit towards the back, so that I'm bringing some of the white colour in further up towards the top, and you'll just sort of see it peeking out through the middle of the arrangement. This helps to give me depth, helps to bring some weight to the back of the arrangement as well. And remember, when we've done arrangements in tall containers before, it's important that we have weight, actual weight towards the back of the container, otherwise it will tip forward and fall over. And then what I'll do with the smaller pieces at the bottom is bring that texture and colour all the way through to the base. So what we have at the top has worked its way down there to the bottom. And I'm probably only going to use one of those stems. I think if I put the other one in, it's going to be too overpowering. Now then, in the bunch was this lovely piece of pittosporum, and this is a really good example of something that's quite linear and is going to bring some height there at the back and some colour and texture through to the back. What I don't want to do at this stage is put something very heavy like the camellia at the back, because these different shapes are going to make your eye fan out and travel in different directions. We need that very straight, upright line effect with our flower material. So this one's going to come here towards the back. And this now is starting also to give me some depth into the arrangement. So rather than it being very flat and two-dimensional, I now expand it from the front to the back, so we're getting some depth into the arrangement. And that's what makes the design three-dimensional as opposed to flat. Right, so now we're going to go in with some of the really dark green camellia leaves. And what I don't want to do is make the design really wide. This is going to help me cover the Agra-Wool there at the bottom. It's going to give me some different texture. It's going to help me create the outline, the width of the arrangement as well. And I'm going to add it all the way around the base. So this time I'm using the same foliage all the way around. And we'll just spin that round. So you don't really see the foliage standing out. I haven't used it to create a wide design, which then would become a triangle. I've left it very close and very compact. But if we look at it from the back, you can still see that I've got a great deal of foam showing. So we'll continue all the way around, adding in some pieces of this really lush green camellia. Beautiful leaf, lasts for ages. It's really good in all types of flower arranging, and it's also great in buttonholes if you're venturing into floristry. Lasts really well. And then just to add a little bit of texture and a slightly different shape into the arrangement, I'm going to add a very small amount of the box. Again, a garden plant that we can grow here in the UK. And I've chosen it because it's a really lovely contrast against the camellia, that flat leaf of the camellia. But again, I don't want a great deal of it. I want to keep the design narrow and thin and not overpower it with too much fussy greenery. Just add a little bit in the front. Now I think the Agra-Wool has worked quite well. I wasn't quite sure when I started at the very beginning how successful it was going to be. I'm quite pleased how that's turned out. Now for me, the design is a little bit short. I would like to go a little bit taller, and what I possibly might do is, just in the photograph at the end, is add in some of these lovely pussy willows. These are exceptionally long. You can see how tall these are. This is a florist material. And I didn't want to add them in at the very beginning because I wanted you to be able to see what you could do with a bunch from the supermarket. But for me, the design is a little bit on the short side. The proportions aren't quite correct. It needs to be a little bit taller. So I'll add them in, take a photograph of it, and if you want, you can compare the two and decide which design you prefer. But for a moment, I think that's pretty much finished. It's a really beautiful example of a line or vertical arrangement. And if you've looked at the Back to Basics series and you've seen the design created with just a simple bunch of probably carnations, then you can progress on to create this design following along those same basic rules. And it doesn't matter how big your container is. If you have a taller container, then you still use twice the height of your container to create the design. If your container is shorter, then you use the same principles and elements to create a fabulous design. Think about evenly distributing the flowers, so the smaller flower is at the top and the larger flower is at the bottom, and this is what we would then refer to as the focal point. Now, I think that design has worked out really well. The Agra-Wool has been a great success, and it's something that I will certainly be using again. So when I've finished with the Agra-Wool, it is 100% compostable. It's far better for the environment. You can even use it to grow seeds in. So much better for the environment than the green floral foam. And I think I'm really pleased with that. It's turned out really well. So I hope you like that one. That's a vertical or a line arrangement. So don't forget, if you've been enjoying the tutorials, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be notified every time I upload a new video. If you've got any questions, pop them in the comment box below, and happy flower arranging. Bye for now.